all their sentiments underscore the principle of humanity. Joyce Msuya's words that humans have more in common than in difference parallel a quote popularly attributed to ancient philosopher Socrates. "I am neither Athenian nor Greek, but a citizen of the world." Although the humanitarian sector looks drastically different today, this core principle has never changed since humanitarianism's inception. Indeed, modern humanitarian principles can be traced all the way back to Greco-Roman times. Roman author Cicero describes the concept of universi generis humani societas, or that all people, in the end, belong to the same community, that of humankind. Cicero's thoughts mark the beginning of seeing and treating both friends and enemies as human. It was an integral step towards the principles of neutrality and impartiality today. Enemy or friend, a human is a human and deserves to be saved. The seeds of humanitarianism, sown by Socrates, Cicero, and other ancient philosophers, are evident in Greco-Roman writings that outline the proper treatment of prisoners and enemies during wartime. These ideas would eventually take root in places such as the Geneva Conventions over 2,000 years later. A similar development happened in a civilization across the ocean, China. Hannah Krebs notes in a research report for the Overseas Development Institute, a global affairs think tank, that much of ancient humanitarian aid is centered around Confucianism, a philosophy that is based in human virtues. Emphasizing the fundamental good of humanity and our capacity for kindness, Confucianism has driven humanitarian efforts in China. Krebs continues that the Confucian concept of responsibility and legitimacy has forged China's understanding of humanitarianism. Attributes such as run, benevolence, and yi, righteousness, featured in Confucian texts. Beyond philosophy, religion has also heavily influenced humanitarian aid. As we move from ancient to medieval times, its impact becomes undeniable. Elizabeth Ferris in the International Review of the Red Cross writes that, long before international humanitarian law was formalized in treaty law, individuals and faith communities provided assistance to those afflicted by natural disaster, persecution, uprooting, and war. Many religious texts or tenets urge people to convey care and kindness to others in their actions. Religious motivation has often driven humanitarian aid, and Ferris continues that in the later medieval period, monasteries were often places of refuge and hospitality for strangers. Catholic orders were established to provide charity to the poor, medical care to the sick, education for children, and hospitality to strangers. These acts of kindness, motivated by religion, would be the early form of humanitarian aid. As humanitarian aid moved from medieval to modern, its core principles remained intact. Henry Dunant, the Swiss businessman commonly credited with founding modern humanitarian aid, spoke out against the atrocious treatment of prisoners at the Battle of Solferino. His work led to the founding of the Red Cross in 1863 and spurred the evolution of the humanitarian sector. The Northern Chinese famine from 1876 to 1879 gave birth to the first formal international relief fund, signaling the rise of finance in humanitarian affairs. After the creation of the United Nations following World War II, the humanitarian sector experienced unprecedented growth. A group of medical workers and Irish Catholic missionaries raised unparalleled funds to aid the state of Biafra after the Nigerian Civil War from 1967 to 1970, a crisis that led to the first televised famine. Soon, humanitarian organizations began to sprout rapidly. Doctors Without Borders in 1971, the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in 1991, the World Central Kitchen in 2010, and many, many more. The humanitarian sector skyrocketed in size, with total funding rising by over $20 billion in the span of just 20 years. Although youth appeared relatively late in humanitarian history, they are certainly not a group to be ignored. One of the first recorded youth humanitarian actions was a play by 6 children in 1884 that raised $50 for humanitarian aid. World War I spurred the founding of the Junior Red Cross. Youth could participate in growing vegetables for the nation, also known as Victory Gardens, and sent supplies to fellow students overseas. In total, Junior Red Cross members raised over $3 million, an impressive feat for the Red Cross during World War I. Today, the American Red Cross offers local clubs and a volunteer program to young humanitarians interested in making a difference. Beyond the Red Cross, young humanitarians today are advocating and raising awareness for critical causes such as climate change. These activists embody the spirit of humanitarianism, showcasing just how far the concept has come since ancient civilizations.